Welcome back, everybody, to the Aaron's High Cap Adventure Radio program. Again, it's September 9th, 2017. We're here live, and to my left, I have super attorney Rick Dodd. Rick, it's always a pleasure to have you on. Welcome, sir.
It is great to be here today.
We have this segment called License to Carry Attorney segment, and I can't think of two better people to have on, but attorney Rick Dodd and attorney Benton Ross Watson. You two guys do a phenomenal job. And I'm going to be talking to you later on about next week's show. I think we have something good going on. But anyway.
Well, Ross is a good guy, and he'll be here next week, so we'll all be looking forward to that.
All right. I asked you if we could talk about wills today, because we're always talking about the positive side of license to carry in the sense of being prepared and being the winner of the outcome. But oops, we didn't win this one, and we're being taken down 6 feet because we lost the gun battle. Well, we need to have certain things prepared for us, like wills. So I thought we'd talk about wills today, all the different types and how they can apply, and what's the bad things if you don't have them.
Of course, I can't imagine a more boring subject. But on the other hand, I know one thing's for certain, and that is not just taxes.
That's right.
So everybody needs to kind of look at this. And I always knew that I wanted to be a lawyer. And the bottom line on this wills and estate planning is some people are better than others. But I remember back in like the 5th grade here at Cameron Miss Batts' class, 5th grade math.
We know Miss Batts well. You talk about her a lot.
Yeah, well, she was a great teacher.
Okay.
I'm not bad. Anyway, she asked this math question in class. And this about a fellow who died who had a $20 million estate, and a fifth of it was going to go to the uncle, and a fifth of it was going to go to the ex-wife, a sixth of it was going to go to his butler, and the rest was going to go to charity. And she asked, well, what do each of them get? And I got bonus points for saying a good lawyer. So it is complicated. I mean, we got complications. You got situations where if you die with a spouse, then you're looking at community property, separate property. And of course, everything is considered to be community property if you have a spouse, unless it is proven otherwise. In other words, there's a presumption that it's community property. So it's treated differently than separate property. If you die without a spouse, generally speaking, your children get your assets. And I'm talking about without a will. If you pass away and you don't have any children, then it gets complicated. And, that's where you need to get the good lawyer involved in the first place. And again, some people are just better than others. I had an old friend, Dan. Dan started working in the family business when he was 10 years old and had worked there for 40 years. And about age 50, he devoted his whole life to this business. He realized that his dad was, getting old. He's 85 years old, and he wasn't, all that great of health. And that when his dad passed away, he was going to inherit like $20 million. So he thought, I really need to think about getting a wife. So he's thinking about that. And one day he was at an investment seminar, and really pretty girl across the room. So he goes over and just tells her, tell the whole story, about what's going on with it. And she was really interested, and he was really happy about that. She asked for his card. 3 days later, Dan had a new stepmom.
I knew that was coming.
But yeah, some people are better than others. So it's complicated. I mean, there's even provisions in the probate code about children born to someone more than 9 months after they passed away, because we have ways of gestation now and impregnation that could last beyond someone's death. The probate code is books and books of information that explains what it all means. So it does get complicated. The need for a will is important because of that. A will bypass a lot of the expense of probating an estate without a will. In fact, sometimes a will allow a quick probate by what they call a muniment of title. A lot of folks are not in this 20 million category that I talked about a couple of times. So if they have a house and they have a will that gives it to their children, the children can go down and get this probated as a muniment of title, and basically the monument that is put in the records at the courthouse is the will itself. and that then shows the descent and distribution, or where the property goes. We have, as a public policy in the United States, a requirement that property has to belong to somebody or something. And when I use the word thing, I'm talking about a trust or a corporation. It belongs to somebody or something. In other words, it can't just be when somebody passes away that it just sits out there idle for years. So it immediately passes to those that are named in a valid will. Now, that doesn't mean that somebody can't contest it and say, well, that's an invalid will, or there's something wrong with the way the will was written, undue influence. In other words, whoever wrote the will may not have been in a steady frame of mind that allowed them to make decisions. But generally speaking, if we go down and we get a will done at an attorney's office, they'll be valid, they'll be self-proving. In other words, there'll be affidavits attached to it that show that it is valid, and it can be processed through the probate court quickly and easily and rather inexpensively. And I don't do wills at my office. We do a few for our clients that need them, of course. But those that do wills and do charge for wills, they might charge $200 or $1,000 depending on how much information and things that you may require. Like, I know if you want to set up a trust, it costs a little more, obviously, than if you have a home and you're wanting to write a will to your children. But it could save a lot of money in the future. Now, I always joke about that. It's like, well, who really needs a will? I mean, I don't personally need a will. Maybe the people that I leave behind need a will.
That's right. It doesn't bother you a bit, right?
It doesn't bother me a bit, that's right. So it kind of gets complicated insofar as us thinking about wills and thinking, I don't want to go down and spend 30 minutes with a lawyer and tell him what I want to do with my property. I'll wait till next year. Now, you talk about something to easily procrastinate about.
So you're talking about a courtesy to the family or friends.
Oh,
so
absolutely. Not just a courtesy, but also a saving of money in the end. Really the idea is to die broke, right?
That's right. Make it and then spend it for your last day and then have a good time and it's over.
It's over, that's right. But
I guess I can die right now then, right? Okay. No, you got me for a little while unless I cross the street and get hit. But hey, Rick, what is a trust? Clarify what a trust is as compared to something else.
Well, a trust is the most common trust is a situation where someone else is put in control of some property that really belongs to the children. We're talking about kids who really, and I say kids, I mean, I know 25-year-old children. Mm-hmm. I know 35-year-old children. And some people just can't manage things on their own. So trust is an opportunity to put something in the hands of someone else to manage it for the benefit and behalf of children or someone else who needs that help. Also, trusts can be used as vehicles for estate planning. There are a lot of people who set up trusts for tax purposes. And again, these are some things that lawyers do who are board certified in probate and real estate. If your estate is rather large, you probably want to go find one of those folks, and we can help you find those because they're out there, and there's some near here that are very good. I know that when my parents needed help, I went to Temple and talked to some folks there. So it's a specialty, just like our specialty is down at Capelino and Dodd Krebs, that you really need to go to because they know exactly what they're doing.
Do you mind if I put out there, if people have got questions about it, they can call?
Sure.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a great opportunity. Everybody needs this. It's like everybody needs air in their tires. Everybody needs a will, okay? You're not going to go very far. So give us a call, 254-697-6633, and the phones are ringing already. Okay, go ahead, Rick. What else you got?
Well, I really can't stress how complicated it is, and that's really the bottom line. I mean, you got situations with half brothers, half sisters. Say, for instance, if you don't have a spouse, you don't have any children, you don't have any parents, it starts going to uncles and aunts and nephews and nieces. And seriously, if you're the butler and you're getting 1/6, you need to just go get a good lawyer. It's a joke, but it's true.
Okay, so there aren't there. Let's see, we've got different types of wills. You kind of mentioned you're going all around. Just go ahead and list the different types real fast. So these people are the audience here. They're probably taking notes so they can say what's what. We got different types, and they're called. You got the trust.
Well, I mean, the trust is within the will. Now, when you talk about different types of will, I would just say there's good will and there's bad will. But the wills are tailored to the person. And when I say that, really it's to the person's estate. I mean, if you have real estate scattered out throughout the United States, you're going to be treated differently than you live in the family home that you raised your children in for 40 years. And when I say treated differently, I mean, it'll still be a good will, but the will is going to be a lot shorter.
Mm-hmm. So you can't really say there's a best will. You have to say there's a will for different.
Yeah, the best will is the one that fits your needs, and that's really what you need. And I have people come in sometimes and they want to get a cheap will, but then they want to start talking about giving to charity and giving to children and giving to ex-wives and putting things in trust. And I'm like, whoa, wait a minute. That's beyond my pay grade as far as will goes, because I don't normally do wills. And then I get someone else involved who is an expert in the field.
You know, I'm looking at all the paperwork you have on the desk here because you always come prepared with notes. And this is just a fraction, a mere fraction, I'm sure, of what you could review. How do you guys do that, man? How do you retain it in your brain to remember all this stuff? I mean, you truly are good attorneys who can say, I may not know it all, I know where to go get the reference material, and because I am skilled at what I do, I can look it up, but it's just a lot of information.
Well, just like doctors, lawyers have to specialize because there are so much information in each area. Like Ross does a lot of criminal work. Mm-hmm. He's great at it. After a few years, you know what's in that book. I mean, you know what's in the 5 books, and you know where to find it if you don't know it. But, after some years of experience and studying the books, you know a lot. I've been doing it for 35 years, and sometimes I look back and look at all the situations that I've been involved in and all the people I've represented. I got licensed in New York and Pennsylvania and had to take an ethics exam to do that. And I recall sitting there for 3 hours doing that ethics exam, and every single question I was thinking about a case that I had handled in the past that kind of rolled into that ethics question. So, yeah, in the probate stuff, it's complicated, but it's also concise. But what you got to remember, in every situation, no matter what it is, there's going to be some differences. Like, for instance, in my business, if I were to lose a little finger, it would certainly upset me, and I wouldn't be happy about that at all. But if I were a concert pianist and lost a little finger, that would be totally devastating. So It would be treated differently, even though it's the same circumstance otherwise.
What made you get into the type of, I know you got your general information as a lawyer, but what made you focus in on this particular aspect of being an attorney when it comes to corporate mishaps and things of that nature?
Well, I saw a need out there, and I grew up on a farm. My dad was an entrepreneur, if you may, being a farmer his whole life, and I saw and actually worked on the farm quite a bit as a kid. And I saw situations where, I'll use the word common man, we're all common for that matter, are getting ran over by corporations, and I didn't like it. The power of the corporation was something that has been developed over the years. When our founding fathers started the United States, they prohibited corporations because there was too much power that would go into corporations. And we're seeing it right now. We have our government, which is huge, and of course they are in the business of helping us and protecting us and transporting us and giving us parks and places to do. But corporations, they have one thing, that it's their job to make money for their stockholders. And when people say, oh, well, corporations are good citizens, it's not possible. You look at some of the pharmaceuticals out there, the way they've been killing people, the way they get their products on the market without proper testing. It's just incredible, some of the hip situations.
Don't they look at it sometimes as, yeah, we kind of know this might be dangerous, but the amount of money we'll make on it being such a fantastic thing to the public, even
Well,
if we do get sued, the percentage of loss is not greater than what we took in the initial income.
And Matt, it's my job to find those memos. Those memos.
There's somewhere the truth is out there.
Yeah, I mean, when we were involved in a case recently where we traveled to 5 different cities across the United States and looked in warehouses of boxes. Myself and 3 other lawyers in my office, we spent weeks looking through these boxes, and we found some really good stuff. And because of that effort that we made, we were able to get the cases resolved without going to court. And going to court in those cases would have cost hundreds of thousands. So it worked out for everybody. I think even worked out for the defendant because they didn't have to spend a lot of money on their attorney's fees and going to court. And their insurance companies paid, and everybody walked away, I think, satisfied. I would have liked to have blistered them, but that would not have been in my client's best interest.
I got a question, and I don't mean this disrespectful to any attorney, but are wills like a tire store? Every car needs tires. They're all over the place. And so when you focus in on wills, everybody's going to die sooner or later, so that's a big market. Whereas compared to somebody like you who gets focused in on a specific thing that excites you because of what the outcome of it is that true about the wills? It's just somebody goes into it because they look at it just as a steady flow of business?
Absolutely, but there's always a but.
Always a but.
There's always a but. There are litigation situations in wills. I mean, you have situations where huge estates usually want to, again, it goes back to getting a good lawyer. I've been involved in will litigation where there's been oil and gas and questions about whether the estate owns certain percentages and whether the companies that were supposed to pay those percentages were paying it to the proper people, and then whether they were shaving off a certain percentage they should not have. I mean, it kind of goes back to the corporate greed that we just mentioned, but that also gets shifted into estate planning and then eventually into the probate situations.
Ladies and gentlemen, I have super attorney Rick Dodd here. Awesome guy, plethora of information. The number here is 254-697-6633. Now's your time to give us a call if you have a question concerning this topic, and he'll be more than happy to do his best in answering it. Rick, what you got there? What you want to talk about there?
Well, I was just going to give you an example of the complications here. Although complicated, it is rather simple when you look at the 2 or 3 pages. But for instance, if someone passes away with a spouse and they have separate property, the surviving spouse actually takes 1/3 of the personal estate. You see, they separated that out from the real estate. So the spouse gets 1/3 of the personal estate of the separate property. She gets 2/3 of that personal estate goes to the children. And then if one of the children are passed, then the decedents of that child. But if there are no children, then the surviving spouse gets a life estate. Now get this, a life estate and 1/3 of the person's land. So it, again, it gets complicated. We got to look at each situation. And then you got situations for half brothers, half sisters, situations where the parents are not there, but the grandparents are. And you got to go back and look at this no matter what. Even if you're a lawyer and you know it really well, it's a good idea to go back and look, just double check.
You just raised my eyebrows on this. I'm thinking like, here's the deal. I'm married and I croak, and my will says she gets it all. She can do with it what she wishes. When she croaks, she's got it set up where it gets dispersed. Is that contrary to what you just read here?
No, I'm sorry. I was unclear on that. What I just read had to do with people without wills.
Ah, I get you. Okay.
Yeah, now see, if you got the will, you get to do with it what you want to while you're alive. If you want it to go to a charity, to develop a park here in Cameron, Texas, it'd be a great idea. Everybody would think that's wonderful. You can do that while you're alive if you want to, but there's some tax situations, like for instance, if you were to had bought AT&T stock 20 years ago and you sell it so you can give the money away today, then you got to pay taxes. But if you just wait until you pass away to give it, then the tax situations essentially disappear.
I lost both my parents in 2011, and my dad, he was an attorney, and he pretty much did what he had to do. But even being an attorney, and he did a lot of wills. I remember him doing a lot of wills, so he knew what he was doing. But even so, taking care of the estate was a headache. Even when it was all written down, what had to do, all the extra stuff, selling the home, monies, the whole works. It's very complicated. And I can only make this comment to those of you who have not gone through that situation yet, and that is, do your best to get it squared away so you don't have your loved ones dealing with it after you're dead. I mean, get rid of all your excess garbage and trash, literally physical stuff, and your paperwork type of stuff. Rick, what do you say to that?
Well, I think it's a great idea. I mean, it's better than a friend of mine who was driving along with his wife one day, and he was thinking about all this junk, and he told her, he said, when I die, I think you should remarry. I really do. And he kept thinking about it. He said, and it'd be okay if you lived in the house. I love the house, but I'll be gone. It'll be all right. And I got these 2 nice cars. Y'all can go ahead and use them. But, these golf clubs, I love the golf clubs. And, I play golf every day. And I can't imagine allowing some other man to use my golf clubs. And she looked over and said, it's all right. He's left-handed.
I knew it, man. You come up with these stories, I go, oh, wait a minute. I sit back and I go, where are we going with this one?
Hey, it's a true story.
I'm sure it is in many cases.
Those are punchlines.
And we talked about what happens, how do they work, different types.
Well, the key is, again, to get the lawyer. I mean, you go there and get your will done, and then you don't have to worry about it anymore. And you can always change your will. Just because you've gone in and spent a couple $300 on getting a will, and you decide that you wanted to change things because maybe one of your children passed away and the grandchildren are, worthless ingrates, you can go change your will. It's not a problem.
Rick, I got a very valid question here. What if you've been diligent and you got your will, but some of those things are private matters, and what if the person who has the will didn't really discuss it with family members? He said, I did my duty, I got it, but nobody knows where it's at or what's in it, or they're dead. What do you do at that point?
Well, when you say what do you do at that point, you're dead. But so hopefully you've told somebody about it, and
That's what I'm saying. You don't. You just.
Well, the lawyer that drew it up for you generally has it, and if he does,
I know, but he's not checking obituaries. He's not going to say, "Hey, your husband just died here," in case he didn't give it to you.
Well, again, that's always a problem, but it's just be a good idea to tell somebody about this will, and maybe even leave a couple of copies of it around. You don't necessarily have to have the original. Now, if the original is available, you do have to go probate it. If you don't have the original and you have copies, you have to present evidence as to why the original is gone. And like, for instance, down in Houston, I'm sure there would be a lot of wills that got washed into the Gulf by now.
Yeah.
But then there could be copies of that will that could be used for probate later.
Well, I would assume if you got a copy, it would say who did it. You go to that individual lawyer, attorney, and they would pull up the master copy, I would assume, right?
Well, yeah, and you use the word master copy. They're originals, and you can have multiple originals. Typically, when someone comes into our office and does a will, we do at least 2 originals, and one of them goes into our vault, and they take the other one with them.
I got you, yeah, and they make copies off of those.
Right.
Isn't there a difference between copy and certified copy?
Not really. Again, you have to present evidence as to why there's not an original and why you have to use a copy to probate instead.
Okay. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the number here is 254-697-6633. Trey, how much time I got before a break?
The music will start up in about 2 minutes.
2 minutes.
Well, one
Rick,
thing I want to mention is debts. It doesn't matter what you put in the will, the debts get paid first. And some debts take precedent over others, and you can imagine that the funeral would get paid. Your medical that led up to the funeral would get paid. And if you had debts like mortgages on your house, certainly those would, in a situation where there's community property, that would just go to the wife. The mortgage would pass to the wife. In other words, it would be her complete debt now. But in situations of separate property, or if you pass without a spouse, see, there's different rules that apply to all of that as far as debts go. So a lot of litigation that I'm talking about that involves an estate has to do with people who are owed money.
Don't they have gap insurance that covers that kind of stuff that you can apply to it somehow?
You can buy insurance for anything, but you can also not buy insurance for anything. So there are a lot of things that require you to have insurance. And then there's a lot of laws out there that say, well, if you're a bank and you're loaning money, you can't require this type of insurance. So again, all that legal stuff gets mixed up in there, and it
You see,
becomes
now,
a
Rick,
minutia.
you said this was boring. I found this fascinating and interesting and very informative. And I think a lot of people out there did too. So if you have a will problem, I guess you can call Rick, even though you
Sure,
don't specialize.
especially if it's a big problem.
Rick, I'll tell you what, we've got about a minute left or so, or less. Why don't you tell everybody who you are, what you do, how they can contact you, and so
Yeah, I'm with Richard Dodd. I'm with Capellino, Dodd and Krebs. We've been here in Cameron for 35 years. I can't believe that. But yeah, every year's been a good year, and every year I wake up in the morning, it's going to be a good year. So you can contact us at 312 South Houston, right down the same street as all the banks are. You can give us a call, 254-697-4965. You can dial 888-MESO-FIRM, but that's a little more difficult. You can look us up at asbestoslaw.com, or our main website is respectforyou.com.
And I want to make a comment too, Rick. You're a major sponsor of this program. I can't thank you enough for it. Without you and others like you, this wouldn't be on the air. And all the people who support me, like Trey and all the other people. So I just want to thank everybody for the support. Make sure you give support to the sponsors. And you hear the music. We're going to be taking a break. So when we come back after the break, we'll be going over topics of interest, and we'll have also our new segment, Tactical Snacking with Janae Goodman.
Thanks everybody for listening.